When I first moved into the Lakeside Ridge community, I thought I'd finally found peace. The place looked like something out of a postcard: neat lawns, quiet streets, kids riding bikes, and the lake shimmering under the morning sun. After years of saving, I bought this small, two-bedroom home, and I was proud of it. But there was one thing that made my property feel special: a huge oak tree that stood right in the middle of my front yard. That tree had been there for nearly a century. Its branches stretched wide, giving shade during the hottest days of summer. The swing hanging from one of its thick limbs was something the previous owner had built for his daughter, and when I saw it during the house tour, it somehow made the place feel alive. I told myself I'd keep it, not just for its beauty, but because it felt like part of the home's soul. But then, her name was Karen, the self-appointed enforcer of the HOA. She wasn't officially in charge, but everyone knew she ran the place. The actual HOA president, Mr. Dalton, was a quiet man who just nodded whenever Karen spoke. Within a week of moving in, I got my first notice. Tree branches extend beyond approved limits. Trim immediately. At first, I laughed it off. Approved limits? I didn't even know trees had those. But the next morning, I saw Karen standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, glaring at my yard like it had personally offended her. She had that permanent scowl, the kind of face that looked allergic to joy. When I went out to grab the mail, she called out, "That tree of yours is a hazard. You know, it's leaning toward the street." I smiled politely. "It's been here for decades. I think it's fine." She frowned deeper. "The HOA takes safety seriously. You'll need to cut it down or we'll fine you." I thought she was bluffing, until I got a second letter, and then a third, each one more threatening than the last. $200 fine for known compliance, $500 for continued violation. I tried reasoning. With them even got an arborist to check the tree. He said it was perfectly healthy. I handed that report to Karen during the next HOA meeting, thinking that would be the end of it. She smirked and said, "Oh, I don't care what some so-called expert says. That tree ruins the uniform look of the neighborhood." The other members just nodded like obedient puppets. I could feel my blood boiling. That oak wasn't just a tree anymore. It had become a symbol of defiance. So, I didn't cut it. I didn't even trim it. I watered it more, hung bird feeders from its branches, and built a small flower bed around its roots. If Karen wanted to fight, she had won. A few weeks later, the letters stopped, but the harassment didn't. One morning, I found a bright orange sticker on my mailbox. Final notice. Immediate action required. I peeled it off. Furious. That same afternoon, Karen came marching up my driveway with her phone out, recording. "Just so you know," she said, "when that tree falls and damages property, you'll be held liable." I looked at her calmly. "Karen, that tree's stronger than the HOA itself." She huffed, turned around, and nearly tripped over a root sticking out of the ground. I had to bite my tongue not to laugh. That night, I heard something strange, a buzzing sound. When I looked outside, I saw two men with chainsaws standing near my tree. I rushed out, yelling, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" One of them said, "Ma'am, we got a call from the HOA said this tree was to be removed." I pointed at them furiously. "You start that saw, and I'll have you arrested for trespassing." They hesitated, then backed off. I called the police just to be safe. By the time an officer arrived, the men were gone. But Karen stood across the street, pretending to walk her dog, smiling like she'd just lost a game but was already planning her next move. The officer took my statement and said quietly, "You should probably install some cameras. These HOA folks can get creative." So, I did. I set up 3 security cameras, one facing the street, one pointed at the tree, and one watching my driveway. It wasn't paranoia. It was preparation. Then came the storm. It was mid-September when the sky turned dark. The news said a thunderstorm was rolling in, but no one expected it to be that bad. Rain came down in sheets, wind howled through the neighborhood, and thunder cracked like artillery fire. I sat inside, watching the storm batter the windows, silently praying my old oak would stand strong. Around midnight, I heard a loud crack. Not thunder, something else. I ran to the window and saw a huge branch had fallen into my yard, but the tree itself was still standing. The next morning, the storm had passed. I walked out to inspect the damage. A few branches scattered, but nothing serious. Then I noticed Karen standing at the edge of her driveway, phoning and taking pictures of my tree again. I sighed. "Good morning to you too, Karen." She didn't look up. "That tree is dangerous. I told you this would happen. The HOA will fine you again if you don't remove it immediately." "Karen," I said, "you care more about this tree than your own life." She shot me a look sharp enough to cut glass. "Maybe if you weren't so stubborn, you'd understand that rules keep us safe." I laughed. "Safe from what?" "Shade." She stormed off, muttering something under her breath. 3 days later, the inevitable happened, but not the way she expected. It was early evening. The weather was calm, birds were chirping again, and everything looked peaceful. I was sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee when I heard shouting. Karen was across the street, arguing with a tow truck driver. Apparently, her brand new SUV had been blocking the fire hydrant, and someone not me had reported it. She was waving her arms, furious. "Do you know who I am?" she screamed. The driver shrugged. "Ma'am, rules are rules." I nearly choked on my coffee. The irony was delicious, but as she stood there yelling, something creaked, deep, groaning, like the sound of wood under strain. My head turned instinctively toward the tree. The wind had picked up just slightly, and the ground was still soft from the storm. Then a sharp crack. Before I could even react, a massive branch splintered off the oak. Time seemed to slow. It twisted through the air, crashing down with a roar, right onto Karen's shiny SUV. Glass shattered, metal buckled, and the car alarm wailed into the evening air. Karen froze, mouth open in pure disbelief. The very tree she'd spent months trying to destroy had chosen her car. I didn't move. I just sat there, coffee in hand, watching the universe do its work. The tow truck driver whispered, "Well, that's karma for you." When the police arrived, Karen was hysterical. She pointed at me, shouting, "She did this. She refused to remove that thing." The officer looked at me, then at the fallen branch. "Ma'am, it's a storm-damaged tree. Nature did this, not her." Karen wasn't having it. "I demand compensation." "The HOA will sue." The officer handed her a report slip. "You can file whatever you want, ma'am, but I'd suggest calling your insurance." For once, Karen had no words. Over the next few days, the neighborhood couldn't stop talking. Some people secretly thanked me for standing up to her. Others kept their heads down, afraid to take sides. The HOA sent another formal notice, asking me to remove the rest of the tree. But this time, I didn't fight. I called the same arborist who'd inspected it months earlier. He confirmed the damage was too severe and that it was time. I agreed, but only after making sure to have a little ceremony first. The morning before the tree was taken down, I placed a small sign at its base that read, "Greater than in loving memory of Oakley. Fell with dignity, defended its home." I swear, the whole street came out to take pictures. Kara, meanwhile, avoided me completely. Her SUV sat in the driveway for weeks, dented and silent, a monument to poetic justice. She filed complaints, but the HOA quietly dropped the issue, probably too embarrassed to push it further. It's been a few months now. The yard feels emptier without that big oak, but I planted a new sapling in the same spot. A young one, strong and green. Every morning, I water it and whisper, "Grow tall. Little one, someday you'll have stories to tell too." Sometimes, when I catch Karen walking past, I can't help but smile. She never looks at the sapling. Maybe afraid it remembers. Funny thing is, after that incident, the HOA actually revised their landscaping rules. Now they encourage preservation of natural trees. I guess it took one falling branch and one crushed SUV to teach them that nature doesn't care about their rules. As for me, I sleep well at night, because every time the wind rustles through the leaves of that little sapling, it sounds like laughter, Oakley's laughter. And I swear, somewhere deep down, Karen hears it too.